welcome to the Plug in Play Podcast Game of the Year show. I'm your host, Henry, and this is your checkpoint for video game news, reviews, and hot takes that nobody asked for. That's right, this is the coveted Plug in Play Podcast 2025 Game of the Year show. We've got lots of fun categories for you. We'll get into it in just a second. You know the drill. It's a Game of the Year show. We're just going to be talking about how great the year was and how also kind of bad the year was. We have some categories for that too. I'll get to the teas in just a minute, but before I do that, how about you leave us a rating? A wonderful little rating, just a thumbs up, maybe a 5-star, whatever it is. We're on all your favorite platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube now. It's great to be on YouTube. Everybody's a fun person there. You can also follow us on all those exact platforms. We're now on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, at Plug in Play Pod 1. We appreciate a follow. We appreciate a like. We appreciate a comment. Talk with me, please, for the love of God, and be a part of the show. If you comment, I'll read your comment on the show, and you can even email me directly at pluginplaypodcast1@gmail.com. The comment system kind of makes it a little obsolete now, but we still have it in the show notes, so I still say it. And by the way, while you're down there in the description, you can take a look at the timestamps. If you want to go to a specific award or category that you care about because you don't like what I'm talking about now, you can do that. It's a labor of love. I do it for you. And that, my friends, is the housekeeping. So, 2025, very big year. I think it was initially a bigger year than I assumed. I remember doing Fantasy Critic Draft. I'm in a Fantasy Critic with an online group. I love Fantasy Critic, which is essentially fantasy football, but with video game review scores. I find it absolutely fascinating, a lot of fun. But I remember the draft this year was insane. It was like everything was supposed to be an absolute killer in terms of reviews, and I think that there were a lot of disappointments. Metroid Prime 4 obviously was a big one here for a lot of people. I haven't played Metroid Prime 4 yet, nor am I a big like Metroid head. But anyways, I have my own takes, okay? And so I got my own reviews and I got my own awards to hand out. All recipients will receive a Plug and Play podcast trophy in the mail, if budget allows, which it won't. But here are our categories to whet your appetite. So, it's hard for one man to play every single game that comes out in a year. I've talked about this in every time I've talked about any Game of the Award show, like the Game Awards is like, well, there's literally no way for even somebody who has a full-time job playing video games and reviewing them to play every game that comes out this year. So you really have to narrow it down to what's, people are saying is good and, what you can get your hands on. And for me, as a normal guy, that is who with other responsibilities outside of doing this podcast, that is really, really difficult, considering like every game is like a 20 to 60 to 120, depending on what you're looking at, hour investment. I definitely played a 120-hour game or two this year somehow. But these categories, I initially went through and I was like, oh, dang, I don't have a lot to put into 2025. I played a lot of games from other years because, of course, you can. Like, just mathematically, most games have come out in other years, and I cannot play every game that comes out in every year, so I have to go back to previous years to play some games that are supposed to be very good or look very fun to me. So I did that. I ended up actually playing 40 games. Yes, I tallied them up. 40 games this year across all platforms, or I rolled credits on 40. I'll say that. I'll get into the rules in a bit, but one of the rules is I have to have rolled credits on the game, unless it's like a multiplayer game, in which case I don't really consider that. But I don't play many multiplayer games, so they don't normally come into consideration. But 40 games rolled credits on. I played a lot of shorter games this year, so that kind of worked out. 2026, though, only played 13 games. I was going to do this after I said the award categories, but we're just going to go ahead and get into it here. Here are the 2026 games that I played, and when I say play, I mean rolled credits on, or excuse me, 2025 games that I played, and by that I mean rolled credits on. So I started the year with Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which was disappointing. Mouthwashing, My Side, 1000X Resist, Thank Goodness You're Here, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, Corn Kids 64, which is a Steam platformer, old school, Pizza Tower, Master Detective Archives, Rain Code, Split Fiction, which was the first 2025 game I played this year because it came out in February, and I played it at launch with a friend. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, which I know it's an expansion, but I'm counting it as a game for 2025 because that's like a 30-hour expansion, so I consider and standalone as well, so I consider that a game. Suicide Squad, Silent Hill 2 Remake, Haste, Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Ghost of Yote, No More Heroes, To a T, Ruffy in the Riverside, No More Heroes 2, No More Heroes 3, Sword of the Sea, Rift of the Necrodancer, Metaphor Refantasio, Arctic Awakening, Death Come True, Pepper Grinder, Despelote, Citizen Sleeper, Everhood, Slay the Princess, Mortal Kombat 1, Indica, and Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, and that is not all of the games that I played this year. There are a few that I have notes on that I'm just kind of saving to talk about on the podcast. So they didn't make. I'm not using them in this list. They aren't nominated for any awards, or they not that they're not nominated, but they didn't win any awards, so it's not worth mentioning them. But that's the games that I rolled credits on. I obviously played a lot more games, like for like, 30 minutes or something, and then I bounced off of them. Like your PlayStation Plus titles or whatever. I typically go through those and just kind of get a feel for if I like them or not and move on. But that's a lot of games. That's a lot of games. I tried to focus on shorter games this year. It's just so hard for me to commit to a massive game. And like I beat Metaphor Refantasio this year, which was a massive commitment, and I knew it was going to be a massive commitment. And it still it took like freaking 3 months for me to get through that game because it was just so freaking long. And I even thought I was like, oh, I can beat this game in a month, no problem. I'll get through it in a month, and then nope, that's not how life works. Some things get in the way. So I think I did really good in terms of knocking out a lot of games this year. But like, yeah, not a lot of 2026 games in there, but you kind of get a feel for where I was playing games this year, just kind of the way it is. So now that you kind of have an idea, let's get into the categories. Took me a minute, but it's just how, I let the conversation lead me, bro. I just kind of let it do the talking. Categories for the Game of the Year Plug and Play episode. Best Narrative, Best Moment, Best Soundtrack, Guilty Pleasure, Biggest Regret, which that's like the games that from this year that I wish I had played but didn't get around to. Most Anticipated Thing of 2026, the Oh Yeah, That Came Out This Year award, Most Overrated Game award, Biggest Disappointment award, Biggest News Story of the Year, because this is a very news-focused podcast and I love discussing the news. It's very fun to look back on that. Best Game from a Previous Year, which there are obviously a lot of nominees for that this year. And, of course, Top 5 Games of 2025. The rules are I only include games from this year, 2025. Outside games are only applicable for otherwise stated categories. So obviously, game from a previous year is, any game works, right? Outside of 2025, I guess. But, that's what I mean by that. So only 2025 games. I'm not pulling any of that shenanigans where it's like, well, it's the games that I played in 2025, so it's a 2025 game. Not doing that. I can do that another year. That's not how time works. So like 2025 games only if they release this year. I only include games I rolled credits on, multiplayer games, unless it's a multiplayer game, and I will probably note that. Top 5 games. Look, I only finished 13 games from 2025. I am but one man. All right, I can only get around to so many games, and there are millions of them out there. I only finished 13. So, like, let's do the math on that real quick. You got a real solid chance of being in the top 5 if you came out this year and I played that game. Okay? I don't like to say that. It really diminishes the awards show. But I like to think I played a lot of good games this year. So, that came out this year. So, it's really unfortunate, though, because I look at that and I'm like, oh, well, obviously like I'm looking at my backlog and I'm like, that game clearly would have made my top 5. Like, I already know it would have. I just hadn't had the time to play it. So, like, it sucks. But like, I only played 13 games. Not even all of them were good that I played from this year. Which we will get into certainly in biggest disappointment and stuff like that. So just because I played it this year does not mean it's good. I only had 13 games to pull from. So just letting you know, if your favorite game didn't make the list, maybe I didn't freaking play it. But like, these are what I think the best 5 games I played this year are. And each category will have a runner-up and a winner. I do have a couple that I really wanted to talk about, like some honorable mentions and stuff like that. Just kind of give them some lip service, just briefly. But I'll mostly be kind of focusing on the runners-up and the winners here. So 2 winners for each category. So, without further ado, I've made you wait long enough. Let's get into it with my favorite category, personally. If we're going with like subcategories, obviously Game of the Year is like the tops, right? But if we're going with subcategories, my favorite category, Best Narrative. I'm a very big narrative-focused gamer. I think that games as a medium are some of the most powerful when it comes to narrative, like how you can feel immersing yourself into a narrative. I think if a game is able to pull off a good narrative, you will feel so much more invested and involved in that narrative than maybe like watching a film or TV, because you're there. Like you are having to struggle through that with the game itself too, right? So I think that the medium really applies itself to giving you a narrative that's different, interesting, and can really speak to you and resonate with you in a way that like a film medium can't. So I love video games for that reason. I think when you have a game with a narrative that really does resonate with you, it's so powerful, and I chase that dragon every time I play a game. Not every time. I'm not freaking playing Ball X Pit and hoping like that I'm gonna cry or something. So like, I don't know, but like, I love that though. I really enjoy that. So best narrative runner up, I am giving to Despelote. This is a kind of a one that snuck in. All right, at the very end of the year, I just talked about it on the last episode, I believe. Despelote. Despelote is a game where you play as a child. In what I can't even remember the country. A Spanish origin country. Forgive me. I'm American. I don't know geography. But you play as that. You play as that thing, a child, and you are very obsessed with soccer. Your country has been nominated or has made it to the playoffs, and you're very proud of that. But really what makes this game so special has nothing to do with that. Like, in all honesty, to me, it's a great narrative because I feel like it is the closest I've ever had, and I talked about this on the last episode of the podcast, but it's the closest I've ever come to feeling like I was reliving my childhood. The narrative here is maybe not the story per se, but the writing here. It really does feel like you're a kid. The adults, like I mentioned, have conversations that go way over your head. Not only do you not care about them as a kid or within the context of the game, but like they don't care that you're there to hear them, like, because you're just a stupid kid and they have to talk about adult things sometimes, so they might as well just talk about it in front of you. Like, I feel like that's, you go to you go to a wedding and it's like, well, I don't give a frick about any of this. I'm just trying to have fun in any way that I can. I'd so much rather be playing soccer right now, and I relate to that in a very deep level on like video games. It's like I'd much rather be playing freaking video games right now. It's like this game resonated with me on such a way, and like I felt like I was back in the 90s again. I was like the technology, it was very nostalgic. It was very nostalgic, even though I obviously have very little in common with the geography of where this was, the culture, the interests. I still felt that tether in terms of the relatability of like, oh yeah, my childhood really wasn't that different, in terms of how people were acting and what was going on and what people cared about. And I think that also the big moment in this game is one of the best moments in the year, which that's the next category. I guess maybe you should kind of look forward to that, hearing about Despelote again, I guess. But anyway, we'll drop that. That's the runner up. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the next category because I just spoiled that. So the winner, though, for best narrative, it's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That's right. We've started the award show off right by already giving Clair Obscur an award. It needs more of them, right? Clair Obscur has the best narrative I've played in a video game in a while. I mean, like, it's it's separated into acts, and each act has like this major bomb drop moment that really changes the way you look at the game. And I have another game on this on that I'm going to talk about later in the show that kind of does the same thing, but I think that Clair Obscur does it in almost a better way than that game. But I loved the narrative. I mean, like, I remember hearing about Clair Obscur initially when it was revealed at one of the Microsoft events, and I was like, dang, they didn't really get into what the story was. I had to go digging for it, and it was like, oh dang, yeah, Clair Obscur's story is freaking really good. Like I forgot. Like or like it was, which, if I guess if you didn't know, the story about Clair Obscur is about a witch that is killing off an age group 1 year at a time, and each year they send out another expedition to go kill this witch and stop essentially humanity from going extinct. And I thought that was such a unique concept and so interesting. And so Expedition 33 was like, well, we're all 33 years old because that's the year that's going to die. So we have to go out on this suicide mission and go try to stop this chick from like exterminating humanity. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, that's honestly, that's a really cool concept. It only goes up from there. Obviously, the intro to this game is amazing. Like, there are several moments that are major twists in the game that I'm not going to get into that are all jaw droppers. I love moments like that in games where I really have to rethink everything. Major twists and turns. Characters in this game are all very good. I think some maybe a little overglazed than others, but like most of the cast is super stellar here. It's such an interesting world, such an interesting story. You really do feel invested in it all. I How can you not? How can you not give Clair Obscur best story? It's hard. It's really hard not to, right? So Clair Obscur is easily the winner for best narrative of 2025. Best moment, which I think ties heavily into, best narrative, but a lot of times those are very different for me. I know last year it was a kind of a toss up in a lot of different ways. Best moment doesn't necessarily always correlate to best story. Like last year, I had a tie for first place for 3 moments in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like that's how I decided to award that. It was like none of them were necessarily story moments. It was like the card battle on the cruise ship, like that you have in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like that's what I gave the top moment to. So, it's not always necessarily like, well, the ending of this, but like it kind of is that this year for me. So, best moment runner up is the reveal in Despelote. I look, I ruined it, okay? I ruined it. The reveal in Despelote is such a curveball. It really comes out of nowhere. And I had heard that the ending of Despelote was like really good. And I was like, I don't know how you're gonna make this like super grounded game have like a weird twist ending. Like, how can you do that? Like, I don't know how you culminate this in any way outside of like, oh yeah, well the kid was like a clone from the future the entire time, and it was all an allegory for X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, okay, like let's just get to this. Where are we at here? And when it actually, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but when you actually get to that bomb drop, that moment, I was like, oh, this isn't necessarily a twist, but it really makes me think about the game I've been playing up to this point in such a much more profound and interesting way than I had prior to this reveal, to this bomb drop of a moment, I would call it. And I think that really is one of the best moments I had all year. It sucks that I also gave it runner up to best narrative. It would have been much cooler if I said this and it also didn't win runner up for best narrative, but sometimes the cards just fall that way. Which gets to us to our winner for best moment. I gave it to The Final Choice in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Because, like I said, there's a lot of really good moments in Expedition 33. Another win for Clair Obscur. Can it keep the trend up? We'll have to continue listening to find out. So the final choice in Clair Obscur is obviously, I'm not going to get into it here, do not worry. But the whole game, you don't really make choices. It's not a narrative choice-based game, but the final decision, a lot of games like to give you like a final decision because you don't have to develop branching paths beyond just an ending of two endings. So it's a lot more development sense to just give you a branching path at the very end because they don't have to worry about that until they make the sequel. But the final choice in Clair Obscur was one that I surprisingly like. I was talking to my brother about this game. He really enjoyed it, and he doesn't play that many games, just kind of the ones that kind of pop up mainstream most of the time. And he got to the end of the game, and he was like, he chose the exact opposite choice I did. And he even was like, yeah, I don't even think that was the right choice, but like I just really liked that character so much that I didn't want to choose anything against them. And I was just like, okay, like most of the time I hear like people whenever I see these final choices, I'm like, well, I kind of know there's like a right answer. I know there's one that I'm supposed to think is right, but also who the frick is going to choose that other choice because I know this is supposed to be right. And it's like, well, some people are just that attached to the characters. And you know what? I love choices like that. One of my if not my favorite choice I've ever had to make in a video game is one of the in-game choices for Dragon Age Origins, where you have to do the same thing. One of your party members essentially comes to you and is like, "Yo, I want you to get me pregnant." Okay, it's Morrigan. This is a real left turn. Look, I know that's not what you expected me to be talking about on this podcast, but Morrigan comes to you and is like, "Yo, I want you to get me pregnant and like impregnate me with a demon spawn, but I'm going to have to leave your party forever." And I had romanced Morrigan, and I was like, I don't want you to leave my party forever, Morrigan. She's like, too bad. I either leave your party forever or you impregnate me with a demon spawn. And I'm just like, well, frick. Like, dang, I don't know if I love that, Morrigan. And like, I remember I had to put the controller down and I had to walk away. And I had to be like, I don't know about this. Like, what do I truly want? Like, what matters to me more? Like, I don't know what the right thing is for me in this situation. There is no right answer. It's a gray area. Ooh, I don't know. And I think the final choice in Clair Obscur that you have to make made me have to. I had to think about it. Like, I had to put the controller down physically and be like, whew. Like whenever you have to let out the deep inhale and then the exhale, it's like, oh, frick. this is real. Like this is I am invested in this. Oh man. Like I love that. That is the moments I live for in my games, and Clair Obscur gave it to me. In the final choice there. I think a lot of people are probably going to look at several moments in Clair Obscur. Obviously there are several early game moments that I think are very impactful in this game, major twists that are impactful and are great moments. But like, bro, I think that final choice made me have to put down the controller, inhale, exhale, and say, "Oh man," and that is, "Oh man," a best moment of 2025. That was a good segue. Next, best soundtrack. Bro, if you've listened to any soundtracks from this year, you already know where this is going, and it's kind of sad. So runner up, I am giving to. And by the way, it's fun fact. I'm not doing this year, but last year I really wanted to go all out with my Game of the Year show, and I put in the soundtrack and in the top 5, I put the major like set piece soundtrack moment, like the theme song or whatever, before I introduced any game. So it was kind of like the build up. So like if you knew the song, you'd know what it was a cool reveal, okay? But I'm not doing that anymore because one of my games, in fact, my game of the year was freaking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Square Enix seems to have found me on the internet, and they freaking copyright claimed my podcast. So there's a reason that my freaking Game of the Year episode for 2024 is not available anywhere. It's because Square Enix copyright claimed it, and because I put One Winged Angel. I put the theme song for Sephiroth in the podcast, and they were like, "F you, dude. We own that." And I'm like, "Cool. No one's listening to this podcast, Square Enix. Who do you think is going to get something from that 5-second clip of One Winged Angel from the Plug and Play podcast Game of the Year show? Get out of here." Like, come on, man. But anyway, so that would have been cool if I did that. But Square Enix and copyright claims, and like, come on, just let me infringe your copyright, Square Enix. What the frick? But anyway, runner up for best soundtrack of 2025. This is something that I honestly have not seen any Game of the Year nominations for, and I'm kind of surprised. Like, I don't get it. It's Donkey Kong Bonanza, baby. Donkey Kong Bonanza for runner up. This game has a lot of cool bopping tunes in it, specifically the transformation segments. So let's be real. Moment to moment soundtrack in a world, it is what it is. I can't point out any tracks from any like, oh yeah, the main theme for this world in Donkey Kong Bonanza. Like, I can't do that. Like, I don't know. But Donkey Kong Bonanza has a huge emphasis on music within its transformations. And the game in general has a very strong emphasis on music. Obviously, the DK rap is featured prominently at every rest station that you go to and checkpoint in the game. So, like, this is a game that clearly cares about its music. And I think that the catchiness of these transformation tunes are totally worth a runner-up win for best soundtrack. But yeah, I mean, I think this game really does try to put a lot of emphasis on its soundtrack, and it has a very good one. I'm thinking of, I was just playing it the other day, and I was like, oh, these are some bopping tunes, dude. I don't even know if I can choose a favorite like transformations theme. It's hard. Next, winner for best soundtrack. Would you believe it? It's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Okay, so we have a complete sweep on all awards so far to Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Let's be real. The narrative behind this one gets it, but it also is like this music is unique, it's original, and it also is French. That has nothing to do with it. If anything, it takes it down a peg. But just kidding. But it's a really great soundtrack, really emotionally stirring, and a lot of moments in this game are supposed to be emotionally stirring. And I think that that's what the music succeeds at. And not only that, but it's immediately identifiable. If you start playing a Clair Obscur song, like especially the main ones with vocals and stuff, holy frick, I'm immediately going to recognize it. I'm immediately going to be like, oh, dude, I remember that moment in that game. Or I remember, oh, yeah, dude, I remember the combat. That was freaking sick. Like I immediately think this was a total knockout in terms of its soundtrack. It really was. It deserves best soundtrack of the year for sure. I mean, go listen to it. If you have not listened to it, you cannot tell me that is so much better than any soundtrack that came out this year. I mean, I'm sure you could. I know you can. It's the internet. You're going to, but I think Clair Obscur is an easy win for this. It's a dude from like they found on SoundCloud. And they were like, yeah, dude. I mean, and everybody says that, okay? I know the narrative behind Clair Obscur is too good. It's too much of an underdog story. I get it. But I have bought into it, okay? I think it's deserved. So, congrats. Next, my Guilty Pleasure Award. These are typically games that I'm like, oh man, I spent way too much time playing that. That's been my past 2 years. I've put a game on here that I'm like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have spent that much time playing those games. I have way too long of a backlog to like go back and play that game again. But it's also games that I think are objectively bad in some way, shape, or form. And I'm like, nah, dude, that game is freaking sick. For instance, or like I had a lot of fun with specifically. So like for instance, last year I went back and checked. My game of the year, my winner for Guilty Pleasure was Death Note. That's right. The Death Note game that came out last year. Everybody remembers it was a huge no, nobody freaking remembers Death Note, but I had a huge amount of fun playing it. So like I played it for like an evening, maybe two, I can't remember. And I was like, I'll never go back to this again because it was a free PlayStation Plus game and the community was going to die within a week. And I was like, I got in, I did what I had to for a week, and people are going to be freaking massacring me at this game. They're going to know how to play, and I'm going to suck at it within like the next 3 days. So like I got what I needed here. But anyway, my Guilty Pleasure runner-up is No More Heroes. The Suda 51 game. I really enjoyed No More Heroes. It's very disappointing. I played through all three actually this year. It's a series that's always looked cool to me. I've always heard is really interesting and unique. And No More Heroes 1 grabbed me, and it grabbed me by the balls. It was insane. It was insanity. I mean, like so much crazy, so much, so much over the top gore and nudity and just wacky, almost Looney Tunes antics. It really just is unabashedly itself. And No More Heroes 2 like almost triple downs on that, and not only that, but like actually fixes a lot of the problems that I had as a game with No More Heroes. And then No More Heroes 3 just sucks. Like everything about it sucks. Like there's not really anything redeemable to No More Heroes 3. I would not recommend it at all. And it was very sad because it was very obvious that they were trying to build up like a No More Heroes cinematic universe of sorts. Like they wanted it to be a very long running series. And it was like, I don't think anybody liked that game. And I didn't like it. And I was so high on No More Heroes. They brought that series back from the dead. I mean, such a sad state of affairs there. But No More Heroes is a game that I think has issues for sure. No More Heroes 1 and 2. But I think really what makes it so crazy good to me is it's just so crazy. And I think that's going to be mileage may vary for a lot of people. But like for me, it's like, bro, if you give me a lightsaber sword and then put me in a mech and make me cut a supermodel in half and like, I don't know, like that's pretty good to me. Like I don't know, like everything about that sentence sounds pretty awesome. So I just think the rule of cool is executed very well in No More Heroes in a way that I don't think anybody but Suda 51 can do. So that's my runner-up. My winner is Beat Saber. That's right, Beat Saber. I didn't even mention it as a game I played this year because I don't think it's really a game you can play to completion. Beat Saber, bro. If ever I have like a bad day or something, I play Beat Saber. That's like my universal. Like I would love to just play a little bit more Beat Saber. I think I have a MetaQuest. I think you could literally just be like, we're gonna strip everything off of this thing and just give you Beat Saber for $300, and I'd be like, sold. I'd be like, that is totally a worthwhile investment. Beat Saber is one of the best things ever, especially if you mod it, and you get access to like all the community made tracks. Infinite content for Beat Saber. Infinite. Not only that, great songs, fun songs, interesting songs. I mean, like, bro, I was just playing like a YouTube poop song the other day on Beat Saber. It's like, this is amazing. This community is fantastic, and it continues to go. I would highly recommend Beat Saber to anybody who thinks Beat Saber looks cool. It is probably going to be one of my mainstay games like forever. I love Beat Saber. And looking at all the games in my backlog, it's like I spent like maybe a week playing like Beat Saber, and I'm like, coulda, shoulda, woulda done something else, but gosh darn it, I had a lot of fun playing Beat Saber. Gosh darn it. All right. Next, biggest regret award, which primarily just goes to games that I didn't play. So that happened. I'll be frank. Like the last quarter of this year, I've been out of commission. All right. I've been too busy. Life has hit me like a truck of bricks. All right. I've had way too much going on and way too little time to play video games. So really, any game that came out in like the last quarter of the year, I have had to pass on. And then several games, obviously, that came out in the beginning and middle of the year. That's just normal. I just can't get around to everything, whether it be financial or time or interest, whatever. It just doesn't always work out. So a lot of games this year slip through the cracks, and it sucks. I have literally every game I'm about to list. I'm going to list out all the games I was like, these games could have been on my top 5. And that's what I'm really looking at here is like my biggest regret award is I'm looking at all of these games and I'm like, dang, if I had played all these games, I think my top 5 would have been a bloodbath. Like I think it would have been impossible for me to figure this out. And let's just get into it, shall we? I did not play Hades 2. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Silent Hill F, Dispatch, Death Stranding 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, and 100 Line Defense Academy. I know 100 Line Defense Academy is kind of out of left field. Nobody's freaking talking about that game. But I think that game is very much in line with, like, I've heard it's actually pretty good, and it's very much in line with, like, what I would want to play. I really like the creator behind that game. He's the same guy who's done Kodaka. He's the guy who's done Danganronpa, if you know. And not everything. I've played 2 of his games this year, actually. Rain Code, Master Detective Archive Rain Code, and Death. I can't even remember the name of the freaking game. But it's a narrative live action game. It's neither one of them are like massively amazing, but I do hold out hope that I would really enjoy 100 Line Defense Academy because a lot of people said it's really good. But everything else there are like what everybody's nominating for Game of the Year. Everybody's saying are like some of the best games to come out in a long time, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, frick. Well, I didn't play any of those because they all came out in the last quarter of the year, minus like Kingdom Come Deliverance. Other than that, and Death Stranding 2, which, full disclosure, I am like a quarter of the way through Death Stranding 2 right now, but I realize it's going to take me like another 40 hours to get through that game. And bro, I got to record right now. So like, what am I going to do? So Death Stranding 2, while it probably would be on my top 5, if you gave me another week, just look, the march of time stops for no man. So we got to do it. We got to call it at some point, and we're calling it here. Death Stranding 2 off the list. So my runner-up for biggest regret of 2025 is not getting around to Dispatch. Bro, I'm a narrative game sucker. I am a sucker for narrative games. Everybody's talking about Dispatch like it's really good. I mean, I think it's ultimately just like a Netflix show that you have to pay $30 for, but I will be the judge of that when I freaking play it. I've heard the narrative choices are pretty not great. It's just overall like a pretty good show, you know. And I'm willing to get invested in that. I want to. I think the art style looks great. I think the setup is interesting. I think the characters seem cool. Um, Voice talent, obviously, it's the Critical Role cast. Critical Role cast is pretty goated, but like at the same time, super like I don't even know. They have I don't think I'm not gonna say craziest fan base, but like they have a sleeper fan base. Like I don't ever hear anybody talking about Critical Role, but they're like the number one streamers on Twitch by like a landslide. And I'm like, I didn't know this was happening. Okay, a lot of people listening to D&D out there. But they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff now. They got TV shows, and now they have a video game. The narrative behind Dispatch is awesome. Ex Telltale, ex Ubisoft. This was a idea that was like basically killed at one point, and then Critical Role came around and basically revived it, funded them enough to revive it, because basically Critical Role is like a massive company now. So you know they can do that. But I'm a big narrative game sucker. And so like any game that you're like, well, this is a narrative focused game and it's really good and the story's really good and the character's really good and the writing is really good. I'm like, that's a game for me, baby. And it's not that long. It's like 10 hours. Perfect. Sounds great. I have it on my PlayStation right now. Didn't get around to it. So that's my runner up for biggest regret. My winner for biggest regret award may have alluded to it. It's Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 1 was quite possibly the only time I've ever played a game, and it emotionally resonated with me, even though I didn't know why. And I was like, oh, this is what art is. I was like, this is what people feel when they talk about art. I didn't think it was possible for me to feel these feelings. Death Stranding is bizarre, but at the same time makes total sense. Death Stranding is one of the only games I possibly would say is like one of my favorite games ever, but also a game I would never recommend to anybody. Like I would be like very, very cautious about recommending Death Stranding to anybody. I'm in the process of playing Death Stranding 2 right now. Still pretty early on. I'm like a quarter of the way through the game, something like that. And it is definitely better than the first game. Really enjoying my time with it. And what really drives it home is, of course, it's Hideo, baby. Kojima. It's the director. He's got a certain style. He's got a certain way. Everything about this game is cool. Everything about this game is like, dang, I wish he was just directing movies at this point. But at the same time, I don't want to lose that video game magic that Kojima is able to bring, and like that those Easter eggs and little touches that he sprinkles throughout his games that really make them super special. I think this game would have easily been in my top 5. I think it would have easily been in my top 5 if I had finished it. And I had not. I have not. So, you know, time is working against us all. And so in this case, it worked against me in like 15 different ways. But Death Stranding 2 is the one that I regret. It did that the most. Next, most anticipated thing for 2026. The reason I say thing, normally you just say game, but thing is because last year it was the Nintendo Switch 2. So I had to change the category's name to thing. But anyway, so you know, what am I looking forward to in 2026? I'm not gonna lie. 2025 was stacked in terms of like we knew all these massive games were coming out. We thought Grand Theft Auto was coming out too. It didn't come out, which has kind of also altered my winners for this as well. I will go ahead and say Grand Theft Auto is not on my winner for either year because I don't care about Grand Theft Auto. Everybody in the world does except for hardcore gamers for some reason, which is weird. But this year we don't have a lot of solid confirmed release dates for games that, you know, which admittedly we didn't have. We did actually have a confirmed release window for Grand Theft Auto 6, I think, previous at the beginning of 2025. But anyway, we don't have a lot. of that this year. So the pickings were slim. It was really slim pickings. But there are 2 games that stood out to me. And I said, I want to play that. My runner-up is a surprise. I think, you hear everybody talk about these games, and it's like, oh, well, I think I'm looking forward to Grand Theft Auto. And it's like, okay, well, you and what army, baby? Everybody's looking forward to that. Oh, I'm looking forward to, I don't know, what's another big game? I'm looking forward to Call of Duty or Pragmata, or Monster Hunter. It's like, okay, yeah, like those are all like games everybody's kind of anticipating, and I'm not gonna lie, okay, my winner's one of those too. But this one's not. Okay? My runner-up is Dinch Attack. You're like, what the frick is Dinch Attack? You would know it if you saw the gameplay for it and you've seen it before. Dinch Attack is a wild-looking game where you play as like a train. Like it's crazy looking. It's like you're fighting mechs and running on Ferris wheels and grinding across canyons and stuff. It looks sick, dude. It looks crazy. It is my kind of crazy. It looks like high octane, super fast fun. I played a game called Haste this year, which was super. I love fast games. Like it is my nostalgia for Sonic the Hedgehog. I want to go fast, dude. I like Sonic the Hedgehog was Sonic Adventure was actually the first game I ever had as a kid. So like have a huge nostalgia connection to like going fast in games. And Dinch Attack looks like it's gonna hit that. It's gonna hit that itch for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. Coming out early this year, I think. So we'll see. We'll see. Winner is boring as frick. It's Resident Evil Requiem, baby. Resident Evil. Yeah, I mean, I like Resident Evil, bro. I mean, what can I say? Every Resident Evil game I played previously in the past several years, it's almost kind of crazy to me to think that I didn't used to play Resident Evil games. But like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 7, those have all been awesome. They've all been great. And I think Resident Evil 8, nobody really talks about Resident Evil 8 anymore for some weird reason, but I think that game is like the closest we've come to like a true successor to like Resident Evil 4. And I think this looks kind of like it could be too. Like obviously it's got Leon in it, but like and it has a significant emphasis on action. But I think the split looks a little iffy, right? But of horror and action, you have one playable character who's only horror and one playable character who's only action. I don't know if I love that, but like I'm willing to give it to Capcom. I think Capcom's on a roll. I think I am willing to be proven wrong about anything about Capcom at this point. I think they have a really great quality standard for themselves right now, and this is the next mainline Resident Evil game. Like this is going to be a banger, and it's coming out early next year, and that's why it's my winner, bro. I mean, like you can't argue the logic, right? The honorable mention I had here was actually Marvel's Wolverine, the new Insomniac game. I am very trepidatious about Wolverine. The thing is I don't even know if that game's coming out this year. Who knows if 2026 is the year of Wolverine? Could easily be 2027. So I'm not putting that down. That's not a thought currently in my mind that game's going to come out. But until I get further notice. But it is what it is. Next category. So all of these next categories, we've been too positive. We've been too nice. We gotta have some mean categories. We gotta have some categories that just try to take the piss. So here we are. We have this newly incorporated category because I think it's worth remembering. The Oh Yeah, That Came Out This Year award. I think that there are a lot of games that come out this year or every year, and we just somehow in the mix forget about them. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember everybody really liked that game, and it's like, yeah, but I don't even think I remember what the frick happened in it. Like, I think that's kind of the general vibe I get like every year is like there's these massive games that come out and then nobody frickin' remembers. So, for instance, we have our runner-up which was one of the best-selling games this year, by the way, and recently came out. But hardcore community people aren't talking about it at all. Nobody's referring to this game in the slightest. It's one of the best. It's one of the best-selling and biggest franchises in video games. It's Borderlands 4. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody. That came out like freaking 2 or 3 months ago. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Nobody's talking about it for Game of the Year. It didn't like bomb in reviews. It was like fine. People thought it was fine. One of the best-selling games this year, like top 10, I think, games this year. Yeah, I mean, who cares? I mean, yeah, that's kind of crazy, right? And that's like, I don't think that's ever been a Borderlands thing before. You know, like I still hear people kind of refer to Borderlands 3 every once in a while. Maybe because it's just the most recent Borderlands game. But like 2, I definitely hear people talking about 2. It's considered one of the better looter shooters ever made. Or at least, you know, one of the more liked ones. Maybe not best made, but like, you know, Borderlands 4, a continuation of that series. It seems like just kind of came and went, and I'm sure sold a lot of copies, made a lot of casual players happy, but the hardcores don't seem to give a frick about it at all, which is just so odd how that series fell off in terms of the zeitgeist within a hardcore gaming community. The winner may surprise you. I am giving to Split Fiction, the 91 on Metacritic, one of the top 10 games reviewed ever of all time on Metacritic, Split Fiction. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Yeah, that came out in February. It was like I mentioned earlier in the show, the first game from 2025 I played and beat. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I don't hear anybody. This is not getting nominated for Game of the Year talk. This is also a sequel to, by the way, It Takes Two, which was Game of the Year winner. And I think Split Fiction is better than It Takes Two in almost every way. What the frick? Why does nobody remember this game came out this year? Like that just seems I don't know. Like that just doesn't seem deserved. And there's always a game that comes out in like the very beginning of the year that everybody says is really good and then just nobody remembers. It's a recency bias kind of thing. We all do it, but like I don't know, man. People really like this game. 91 on Metacritic. 91. It's a 90 plus game. That's kind of crazy. And nobody seems to be even nominating this for Game of the Year. It's not even in talks. So like that's just so weird to me. It just seems like everybody forgot. By the way, here are some honorable mentions for games. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Award. Splitgate 2. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Admittedly, that was marred around controversy, significantly marred around controversy. I don't know if the controversy killed it. I just don't think people give a frick. I don't think people ever gave a frick. People were like, "Oh yeah, where he made a reference to MAGA. He made wear a hat that said "Make FPS great again," and then he was kind of a douchebag about it. And I'm like, okay, maybe that made like freaking 100 people not want to play this game. You know, like let's be real. Like you have to be really plugged into the discourse in order to even know that happened. So to say that like maybe 1,000 people didn't want to play his game after they saw that, probably more accurate. But like, come on. I don't know. I think people just weren't feeling Splitgate anymore. Like I think Splitgate's pretty sick too. I've actually played Splitgate 1, and I thought that game was a lot of fun. Only played it like for one evening, but I thought that game was a lot of fun. I actually kept it on my hard drive for a really long time, being like, maybe I'll go back and play Splitgate again because it's a freaking cool game. But like Splitgate 2, I don't know what the frick happened there, but it fell off for sure. Metal Gear Solid Delta. Oh yeah, that came out this year. You know, a remake to what most people consider to be the most beloved Metal Gear game ever made, which Metal Gear is one of the most iconic video game franchises ever created. Oh yeah, that came out this year. Admittedly, I think it kind of got marred by it was just too much of a remake. It was too faithful. It just didn't change. It didn't really update or change enough outside of visuals. To an extent of even using the same voice acting, like literally lifting the clips from the original game and just moving them to the new like game, the new one. Like that's just it's really too faithful, right? They need to at least re-record some stuff, right? But like I don't know. You just assume that that game would be a little bit more impactful. It would make a little bit more of a ripple in the pond there. Wanderstop, the newest game from the Stanley Parable creator, which I was heavily looking forward to until I read about it, and it was like, no, it's just a gardening sim. You're just kind of making coffee and stuff, and it's like, so there's no big twist or meta narrative or anything. Nope, nope. You're just tilling soil and roasting beans and stuff, and fantastical setting. I'm like, oh well, that trailer really made me think that there was going to be some cool twist. And like, nope, nope, nope. Just a coffee sim. It's like, oh okay, well yeah, no wonder anybody freaking forgot about this. And then probably what would have been my runner-up if not for Borderlands being like such a massive IP and still nobody talking about it is Doom: The Dark Ages. What the frick? That came out this year. Oh yeah. Like how did nobody talking about that right now? Also it was nominated for like 2 Game of the Year awards at the Game Awards. It was like accessibility or something. It won like accessibility. So like technically it won a Game of the Year award, but like come on. Like come on. But like everybody, I played the first couple of levels of Doom: The Dark Ages. I bounced off of it. Everybody was like, yeah, and I really love the original 2016 Doom remake or reboot. Really, really love that. Did not love Eternal as much. It was way sweatier. Like way just not in my ballpark at all. And then people were like, yeah, very divisive on Dark Ages. Very divisive. Most people were like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. And I was like, I played the first 2 levels and I was like, I'm not really feeling it. I got other stuff I can play right now. I actually enjoyed Song of Midnight, the other Microsoft published game from like that was about like that chick in Louisiana. Like I actually enjoyed that game more than I did the Doom: The Dark Ages, which is insane to me. It just didn't resonate with me at all for some reason, and I think it happened. That's the same thing happened with like a lot of people, which is kind of crazy. Really unfortunate purchase for Microsoft to have bought all of Bethesda to have a Doom series and all like a freaking mainline Bethesda RPG that just kind of didn't really hit with people. Like that's wow, you couldn't choose a better time to acquire Bethesda. But anyway, yeah, that game came out this year. So there you go. Next, most overrated. Ew, overrated. So I see this happen all the time. I find myself agreeing more and more with critics' overall interpretation of games. Like a Metacritic score, I typically think is kind of accurate, you know? Like I'm not going to say that necessarily will always dictate how you are going to like a game, because you may like stupid boomer shooters or whatever, and like that maybe it has for me, like I'll be very specific. I love 3D platformers, and I'll enjoy a game that's like a really mediocre 3D platformer just because if it's just competently made at all. But like a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, is this moving the medium forward? Is this truly one of the best, 3D platformers ever created? I'm going to give it a 7. And like I can play a 7.5 or something platformer and have a great time, but like I'm probably not going to recommend it to everybody because, they're not platforming fiends like me. So like, a lot of times the general consensus, the overall disparity of like a Metacritic score typically hits in around the right spot, just around. In this case, I think there were a couple this year that snuck in that were a little overrated. I think that their Metacritic scores were a little bit higher than what I would have thought the game kind of deserved for one reason or another. And one of those games, in fact, my runner-up, I didn't actually play that much of. I played the prologue demo, which was still several hours. It's like 5 hours or something like that. But from a very well-respected series. It's Trails of the Sky, first chapter. This is one of the highest reviewed games of the year, actually, at a 90 on Metacritic. Wowza. This game is
heavily skewed towards being one of the greatest games ever released in terms of Metacritic score. And I played the demo and I was like, this is a maybe good, maybe. Like, and I say that with a grain of salt. Maybe a good JRPG. By the way, Trails is one of the most hardcore, like that community is insane. Like they really love when people come into that community. They are so aggressive about it. It's almost like the anime community. Like it's like Fate. If you're familiar with the anime community and like Fate, Fate Stay Night, and Fate Apocrypha, all that other stuff. There's a lot of Fate anime and a lot of Fate product in general, really. But that show is like very difficult to get into, and there's no real good place to get into it. Trails of the Sky was the first Trails of game, and it was considered like the best place to get into it, but it was not very easy to get into because it was like a PSP game or something like that, and not very modern, had a lot of JRPG trappings to it that really didn't need to be there. And so Trails of the Sky, the first chapter, is now like the definitive place to go. If you want to be getting into Trails, that's the place to go. And so I think the fan base really like latched onto this and really gave it a great score that it didn't deserve. From what I played of it, voice acting, by the way, done by some industry veterans. Hinata, and like Johnny Young Bosch, like who you may know as like Vash the Stampede from Trigun, or Lelouch Lamperouge from Code Geass, or a Bleach. He's Ichigo Kurosaki from Bleach. That's his big one. Sorry, I'm a weeb. I know too much about this stuff. But anyway, like they're veteran voice actors in the anime space. Voice acting sucks, and I'm like, oh, how did they let this through? Like they had some veteran voice talent, and it's not good. The cutscenes go from being well done to like generic JRPG. The combat I did not mesh with at all. Felt very grindy, very traditional JRPG, at least from the opening. Bro, I would love to get into Trails. I would love to get into Trails. This game is still too. I mean, like when you're looking at it in comparison to like a freaking Final Fantasy VII remake, what the frick? Like this is nowhere near close, and it's a 90. It's higher reviewed than Final Fantasy VII remake. What the frick? So Trails of the Sky is easily my runner-up here. It would probably be my winner if I had played it for frickin' 80 hours or whatever the frick you have to do to get to the first chapter. By the way, there's a second chapter coming out this year, so you can play all of Trails of the Sky, all 500 hours of it or whatever, within 2 years. So very fun times we live in. My winner, though, was a game I did beat. It is currently an 87 on Metacritic. It was initially an 89. I went back and double checked. Because I was like, wasn't that game higher? It was. It was an 89, and it wasn't. Now it's an 87, so it's come down a little bit. But an 89 is kind of where I was initially reviewing this game at. It's Sword of the Sea. Sword of the Sea is my winner for most overrated game. It's fine. Nothing wrong with Sword of the Sea. Like it's a fine game. Did you like Abzu? Kind of a boring game, right? But it's fine, if you want to just kind of chill, go through the water. Did you like Journey? Well, what if you took out all the social elements of Journey that made it an actual good game? Oh, well then, yeah, then you have Sword of the Sea. Like I think when I look at Sword of the Sea, I see, well, this is clearly it's a Journey. Like it's from some of the same people, so it makes sense. But like Journey, what made Journey really good wasn't surfing on sand and making your scarf really long and jumping high or whatever the frick. It was the social elements. Like that's what really cemented that game as like one of the best indie games ever. Is like coming in contact with a random person in the world, and then like at the end of the game you find out, oh, that was actually several different people or something like that. Like it communicating with people like that. There's no social elements with Sword of the Sea. It's just running around in open world. That's it. It's just running around a big open world in the sand and water and stuff. And while that's fun, It's like an 8. It's like an 8. If I really wanted to be objective, it's probably an 8. Nothing too wrong with it. Nothing great about it either. It just kind of serves its purpose and then stops. This was an 89. What the frick? That's crazy to me. Easily, uh, still don't understand how an 87 is even really, like, again, puts it in the upper echelon of one of the better review games ever. If you are above an 85, you typically make it within the top 100 games ever made within Metacritic. So Sword of the Sea is easily within the top 100 games ever made. No shot I would ever say that. Like, absolutely not. So that's, to me, way overrated. Next, and probably our last bummer award. Biggest disappointment. Biggest disappointment. So this is not necessarily the worst game. Okay. So there's a gap between what I assumed the game was going to be and what the game was. It disappointed me. My expectations were not met. That's typically how you disappoint somebody. So, with that being said, runner up, I thought this game would be good, but it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It's Mario Kart World. Oof, Henry just threw a Nintendo game on the most disappointing. Bro, you should be lucky I didn't play Metroid Prime 4, because I think a lot of people were disappointed by that one. Admittedly, I wasn't expecting anything from it because I didn't love Metroid Prime that much. So like I wasn't expecting anything crazy. But like Mario Kart World, I kind of freaking was. When you say it's Mario Kart World, and you tell me in the press stuff, oh, you're gonna have an open world. The open world is at your disposal. You will have so much to do in this open world. Explore the world. I'm like, holy frick, this is the next evolution of a kart game. Open world? Holy frick, this is gonna be like some kind of Ubisoft game, but Nintendo's making it, and they're putting the Mario Kart IP, one of the best-selling IPs they have and more well-known IPs they have, on full display. It's going to be a launch title for the Nintendo Switch. It's going to be the console seller. They clearly believe in this. Holy frick. And then, bam. It's the open world has like nothing to do in it. And the stuff that's in the open world is like a bunch of challenges, and the challenges kind of suck. And the rewards that you get for doing the challenges, like there's no reason for you to want to do them. And it's like, oh well, there's peach coins. I remember initially finding a peach coin, and I was like, oh cool, a peach coin. And then I looked it up, and it was like there is no reason for you to collect peach coins. They do nothing. I'm like, well frick, they're actually kind of hard to get. It's like cool because there's no reason to get them. It's like, oh well, dang, okay, that's cool. And then like the tracks themselves were overwhelmingly, like the world aspect of connecting the tracks never really clicked with me. I wasn't very interested in it. I really would have rather just had 3 laps around a really well done track rather than like a third of my time in any track like transitioning in a straight path to another track. I understand the goal, the idea of what they were trying to do with Mario Kart World. I do not think it landed on almost any front. And I think that the open world element of that game is honestly just straight up like, it's like they shouldn't have even put it in there. I genuinely think the game would be less disappointing if they had just said, this is another Mario Kart game. You're kind of transitioning between tracks. That still probably would have been slightly disappointing to me, but even then, Mario Kart World's open world is not good. It's just not good. I really can't justify it at all, and I don't see Nintendo doing anything to really turn it around unless they pretty much revamp it. Like you really have to, they'd have to design pretty much an entire game around that open world to make it worth actually just driving around and doing stuff in, and I don't see them doing that. So I think that open world is completely pointless. You can't even like get to it easy. I had to like figure out how to get to it from the menu. I was like, how do I even actually get into the open world? It's like a tiny little button. You have to kind of have to look for it. It's like, oh, we don't really want you to engage with the open world that much. It's like, okay, you knew what you did. You knew what you did, but you called this game Mario Kart World? Come on. Come on. So my biggest disappointment, or not my biggest, but it's my runner-up for biggest disappointment. I still think the game is fun. It's a Mario Kart game. It's not, of course it is, but like I do kind of agree with the statement that a lot of people were like the elimination mode or whatever. That was kind of the knockout. That's what it's called. Knockout mode is really what this game was built around. So it is what it is. Winner though, I was really disappointed by this one. My winner for biggest disappointment of 2025 is, hold on to your hats, is to a T. To a T. This is from the creator of Katamari Damacy and Watam and Nobi Nobi Boy. I'm a big fan of Katamari. No, I'm not gonna say big fan. That makes me sound like I've played every Katamari Damacy game. But I'm a fan of Katamari Damacy. I really enjoy it, at least from a lot of different angles. Its personality, its charm, its wackiness, soundtrack, and just its general mechanics are all very inventive and unique. Nobi Nobi Boy, I have a soft spot for. I mean, it's a very simple game, but it's a very, again, also very unique game and very wacky game. With Tom, I'm a little bit less into. It's a little bit more slice of lifey. It's just, I played with Tom. I don't remember most of it. It was pretty forgettable to me. To a T. Oh my gosh. To a T is like the least wacky game he's ever made, and it sounds like it's like going to be this crazy game. It's like, oh well, it's about a boy who T poses nonstop. All he can do is T pose. It's like, oh, that's cool. Well, like most of the game is just like boring. It's just boring. It really is just a boring freaking game. It's just you wake up and you brush your teeth and you eat cereal, and that's like it. Maybe there's a little bit of charm here and there. There's really not much going on though. The game kind of ends in a semi wacky way, but like it almost completely negates the entire purpose of what the game was trying to do. So like the entire purpose of the game is like, oh well, I literally was like, dude, this game is like an allegory for like racism or something. It's like, like, oh, this guy was born this way. He can't do anything about it. And everybody's bullying him because he can only T-pose. Like this, we're going to get into some really meta stuff about some really intense, deep stuff. It's going to be kind of like racism or some bullcrap or like making fun of a dude in a wheelchair. Like that's what this is going to be like. And then like it never gets there. It almost immediately abandons like the bully subplot of him being like discriminated against because he's like a T shape, and it's just like the adventures of like boy in a town, but he also just only T poses, and it's like, okay, well, so nothing came of this, and then like at the end of the game, look, I'm gonna spoil it because I don't give a frick. I'm not going to spoil Claire Obscura or Despalote for you, but I'm going to freaking spoil to a T, because it's just boring. It is just boring. I would almost recommend to you a game that kind of sucks than to a T, because it's just so boring. And you eventually find out that your dad was an alien. Your mom had sex with a T that was an alien. The letter T was an alien from another planet, and she got impregnated by it, and you are the result. And then like the aliens come and turn everyone into T poses, so nobody can do anything but T pose, because T posing is what the game says is the perfect shape, and everyone should be a T. So like if there is a racism allegory here, dude, it absolutely flipped it on its head and made it like, no, we are the master race of T's. We are absolutely going to convert everybody into being a T just like us. You must conform. I'm just like, holy frick. Yeah, there's no message for this game at all. Like, not only is this game boring, but it has nothing to say, even with its boringness. And like, if you told me the maker of Katamari Damacy was like gonna make a boring game, I'd be like, what reality did you just come from? Because that's not the reality I would ever expect. It's like, you give me the premise for this, I'm like, oh, there's so much crazy stuff you can do with that. Surely. Like a mind who came up with Katamari Damacy and Nobi Nobi Boy, where you literally like eat stuff to poop it out and grow longer so you can meet your girlfriend who's like wrapped around Pluto or something like that. I can't even remember what the story of Nobi Nobi Boy, but that is what basically the story is. And you tell me, oh yeah, it's dude about T-posing, and all you can do is T-pose. It's like, bro, this is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be insane. And then like it's just boring. It is just boring. I would never recommend to a T to anybody. Anybody, I would never recommend it. And it makes you sound like that's like the worst game I played this year. Absolutely not. But it is absolutely the most mid game I played this year, and I think that is by far a much bigger offense. Like it's just boring. It's just boring. And when you're looking at something that the creator of Katamari Damacy did, that's kind of insane. I would freaking not like that. So that is my biggest disappointment. I probably sounded like I freaking want to burn that game alive. I don't. I mean, it's fine. It's just like the most mid game I've ever played in a long time. So, next. We're getting into the big categories. These are probably my top 3 favorite categories, really. Biggest news story of the year. This is a very news-centric podcast. I cannot play every game that comes out in a year, but I can keep my ear to the ground and I can listen to the news and try to be informed. So, the news. What story did I think was the biggest, the best, the most impactful for the year? Well, I'll tell you, because there were a few. Last year, it was Embracer Group's demise. Maybe we have some kind of mirror, some kind of, it's like it rhymes, kind of deal. Not so. Runner up is the release of the Switch 2 and pre-order craziness. So I think a lot of people would tell you they're kind of disappointed with the Switch 2. It's just kind of a Switch Pro. It is what it is. That's what I expected from the Switch 2. So I don't know. I wasn't disappointed by that. It just kind of met expectations for me. But I love a good hardware release. I think we're probably not going to get many of these in the future. It's one of the last probably major ones we're going to get. I probably the most fun podcast I had recording this year was the podcast about pre-ordering a Switch 2. If you are in the trenches like me, trying to get pre-orders like for the PS5 and for the Switch 2, you know it can be insane. You know that, in all honesty, Switch 2 was pretty easy to get a hold of. You should still be able to get a hold of it pretty easily. It's because I think Nintendo flooded the market with units because they were afraid of tariffs. So they flooded the market. There was plenty of stock, but early on, it was insane to get one of these things out the gate. And I got my hands on a couple of them, gave them to friends at cost. And I also scalped like 2, but you couldn't scalp them for jack because they were so. I think I scalped them for like $50, 50 maybe $100, and like that was pretty good, considering all the extra effort I had to go through to get to into the line and stuff. But like you couldn't like PS5, you could scalp that for like $1,000 more than it was worth. Like Switch 2 obviously a lot less, but that's because it was so easy to get a hold of still. So like market dictated it. But anyway, I love that feeling. I love that feeling of being the first in to try a new piece of hardware. Like what's new? What's more interesting? I know a lot of people say, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour sucks. That's because they freaking charged $10 for it. If it was free, nobody would have given a frick. It would have been fine. Everybody would have sung its praises. But $10, dude, honestly, for me, I got a lot out of that because it for a nerd, Welcome Tour is great because it walks you through all the hardware. This is how we designed everything. This is how we thought about everything. To me, that's so cool. And new hardware is so cool, especially new hardware that's not just like, well, this is another piece of RAM, but it's like faster. Like this is the NVIDIA chip 5.x67. And it's like, okay, cool. I mean, so it's another chip. It's just better. It's like, yeah, that's it. It's like, well, I would love to see like an actual advance in technology that's not just like processing power and speed and stuff. Like that's cool. I like that, but it's not interesting. It's just, like a progression. And a lot of Switch 2 is that. Don't get me wrong, but like it still is that new hardware smell. It still is that experience of experiencing something new, of being the first in the gate, like of this new generation. and you're not going to see that many new generations moving forward. I don't think. I think we're kind of getting close to the end of seeing generations in general. We're moving to a kind of a PC centric focus, and even the Switch 2 isn't that much of an interesting per se, release, because like I said, it's just kind of a Switch 1 Pro. But still, the hype around it, like everybody being on the same page. This is the new big thing, the successor to the Switch, one of the best selling consoles of all time. That's just a cool moment. It's a cultural moment that I would love to just kind of bottle, and it's something that's very nostalgic for me as somebody who really looked at like the hardware launches as a major deal growing up. Like oh my gosh, PS3, Xbox 360, Wii launch. Oh my gosh, that's like peak nostalgia for me. So like I got a little bit of this here, and I'm really excited I got to. So, Switch 2 release. Welcome the new generation. What is the winner? What could the winner be? That was actually a pretty uplifting runner-up for the biggest news story of the year. Well, the winner's a little bit more downer. It's a little bit more of a downer. We have a lot more downer situations this year than uppers. That's typical of most things, right? But the winner is the continued collapse of Xbox. That's right. The biggest news story of the year is Xbox just kind of kept shooting itself in the foot, like over and over and over and over again. Like that was kind of the case with Embracer last year as well. Is almost every week I would get on the podcast and I would be like, yep, Embracer did something stupid again, or like, yeah, like this is inevitable. Like they're really trying to push death, upon themselves, or oh well, now it's dying, and yep, let's watch it die, like that kind of deal. And I think that Xbox is much in a similar place. The problem is Xbox is one of the major publishers of hardware and games in the video game industry, and now they own like freaking a third of it. They own all of Activision, Blizzard, they own all of Bethesda, they have Double Fine, they have a million other studios now under their wings that makes them a massive powerhouse in terms of publishing. They're a bigger publisher now than any other publisher in existence in video games. So like, holy frick, like their demise is a massive problem for everybody. Not only that, but they're the only really truly direct competitor to PlayStation. So if Xbox isn't around and Xbox isn't trying to push Sony in a specific direction to help consumers, Sony isn't gonna give a frick. So I think that's such a massive blow to anybody in the gaming space that cares, not only if you care about Xbox and it's like, oh, well, I've only played Halo and Gears my whole life, and like, that's where I play all my third party games and blah, 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 blah. Look, man, I feel for you, but like everybody's going to be hit by this. Everybody. So let's go through some of the headlines that happened over the year, just in case you forgot, because like, as I was going through this, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, they really effed this up. Like you really could not catch a break with Xbox this year. It's really been freaking miserable. So we start off the year with not one, but two Xbox hardware price increases, both due to economic impacts of tariffs. The first one was by $80 to $100. And then the second one was like another 20 added on top of it. So like, no matter what unit you were looking at, every single one of them at least increased by $100 this year from what it launched as. So like, for instance, the Xbox Series S 512 gigabytes launched at $300. It's now $400. The most egregious bump was obviously the Xbox X 2 terabyte Galaxy Black, which launched at $600. It is now $800. So a $200 price increase. So it like ranged from like basically $100 to $200, depending on the model. So some of them were up to 100 and some were 150. Blah 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 blah. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you're essentially paying $200 more for a console that you could have bought cheaper, like what, 5 years ago, something like that. So like, insane. Something we're already not used to. Not only that, but on top of it, they were like, oh yeah, and we're increasing all the price of our games to $80. Which, by the way, they have not fulfilled that promise yet because they walked it back for the Outer Worlds 2. They kept the Outer Worlds 2 at $70. They had to refund people. It was insane. It was like such a massive backlash. They're like, oh well, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have charged $80 for the Outer Worlds 2. Like maybe if we're gonna charge $80 for something, we shouldn't make it the Outer Worlds 2, which is a game people are maybe looking forward to. It's not a Halo or a Gears. It's like at least Nintendo tried to do it with a Mario Kart game. Like at least people like wanted that. It's like, well, Outer Worlds 2, it's like people would have just bought this on like sale or something most of the time, I think. So yeah, we're looking forward to the $80 games though. Don't worry. Sony still has not done that yet. And Nintendo has not committed to that on any game outside of Mario Kart World. So cool beans. Microsoft being the first major publisher to go all in on that is pretty nice. Next, of course, where there are major layoffs and closing major studios and canceling major titles. Holy frick. So I had to write all this down and I was like, dang, yeah, they really took an axe to this thing. So they started off with laying off around 4% of the entire company, Microsoft, not just the gaming division. But this did affect King. So, Candy Crush people, 10% or 200 people lost their jobs there. ZeniMax Online, same there. ZeniMax also, they had to cancel Project Blackbird, which was their new game. The studio head left after that. They canceled Perfect Dark and then shuttered the initiative, which was the development behind that, or the developer behind that completely. They hit Rare with layoffs and then canceled Everwild, which admittedly had been in development for like over a decade and was apparently struggling behind the scenes. This led to the director, Greg Melees, who is like a 35-year vet for the studio and probably one of their best talent still remaining, resigning in what was apparently a protest of the layoffs. Which was honestly kind of rad. He was probably set for life, but you get it. He was like, "Yo, you're laying off all of my staff and not me. F you. I'm gonna step down because I don't want to be one of the people who survived when it's my studio." They canceled the new game from John Romero, so that's the guy who did Doom. They essentially were like, yeah, they were publishing it, and they pulled out of being a publisher, and without it being published, having a publisher to back it, it didn't have the money to survive. So that got canceled, and then the studio completely shut down. I think he's still trying to find like an angel investor for it, but effectively they killed it. And then after all of that, they were like, yeah, Phil Spencer, he's going to be sticking around. Don't worry. People were like, I think he needs to retire and or step down, and they were like, no, I think we're gonna be. He's good. He's good. Don't worry about it. And so like everybody's watching this house of cards crumble, and then it's like, oh yeah, well don't worry. The leadership's fine. The leadership's fine. We're doing a great over here. Then the major thing I would say, okay, they're killing hardware. They at least still have Game Pass. Game Pass still one of the best deals ever, right? In gaming, it's got to be, right? Ooh, I don't know about that. It's increased by 50%. The price goes up on Game Pass by 50%. Now, even I am like, look, that's still objectively a deal if you go through everything Xbox offers you, Fortnite Crew and Ubisoft Plus and, obviously day one games that they put out. Sure, it's worth it, but it's nowhere near what it was, bro. It's like barely a deal. It's only a deal if you actively engage with everything they're giving you, and there's just simply no way for you to do that. There's not enough time. There's not enough time in somebody's life for you to actively engage with like 100% of the content that Xbox is giving you as part of this subscription. So like why would you pay for 100% of that content? That just doesn't make sense. So that was like their big thing. It was like, well, we basically dive bombed the entire division. Like all of Xbox was dive bombed to support Game Pass, and then we're going to up the price for Game Pass significantly. It wasn't like a little jump, significant. This, of course, led to the crashing of the page to unsubscribe from Game Pass. It was crashing. People could not unsubscribe because the page crashed because too many people were trying to get into it. Absolutely insane. And by the way, there's still rumors of another price increase because RAM is now so massive in terms of price that they're probably going to have to increase the price of the hardware again. What a year. This was the year of everybody, I think, completely turning on Xbox and saying, I don't think this is a place I want to be anymore. I think if you genuinely are still looking at Xbox as an ecosystem that you want to be a part of, I would love to talk with you. Like, can you send me an email? Please post a comment. I would love to know why. Why do you feel the need to continue to invest in the ecosystem that clearly doesn't care about you, isn't trying to focus on anything for your longevity? Like, they want you to be a subscription service. They want you to pay a subscription. And honestly, if you want to own your games forever, you should just be on Steam, and keep the games digitally there for an ecosystem that will be there for a long time. Same thing with, like, if you want your games physically, you should probably go to PlayStation, like something like that. Like, there's really, because now all the games are coming out on PlayStation, so there's no reason for you to really be dedicated, which that was another thing I guess I didn't mention here is, like, all of their games are now coming to PlayStation. In fact, most of them are coming day one, I believe now. So it's like Halo's coming to PlayStation. Gears is on PlayStation. I'm literally looking at a copy just for, I got it on a deep sale, just for, I have access to it on Game Pass, but I was like, just for the novelty of having Gears of War with a PlayStation logo at the top. PS5. That's insane. That's crazy. Is that not insane? I can probably pop in that game right now and I will see PlayStation button prompts on my UI for Gears of War. What the frick? That's insane. Why are you still there? Why are you still there? It has been the year of the end of Xbox. I think people have all kind of looked at this. I think that obviously the corporation itself, Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, they're all in on AI, and they're looking at this portion of the company that's bleeding out money, and they're like, well, you need to really get this figured out. Hey, you probably you just literally acquired the most expensive company ever, the most expensive acquisition ever of all time, and we're not getting anything from it. You need to freaking tighten up the margins. And the way they do that is they up prices. And it sucks, but it is what it is, bro. I think Xbox has unfortunately they have their hands tied. Xbox leadership has their hands tied. They can't do anything about it. They have higher ups to speak to, and the higher ups are like, you need to make more money. And that's what they're trying to do. And it sucks. But I think we're losing a massive competitor in the space, and it only hurts us as gamers. And I think, how could that not be the story of the year? Is like, there's just no reason to be on with Xbox anymore. There's no reason. It's sad. Okay, moving on. That was a great downer of a moment. So, game of the year, everybody. Hooray! We're back. Next is probably the most impactful game award, because I played the most of my games fit into this category, so there's more competition, right? So best game from a previous year. So any game that from any year that I played this year can be eligible for this award. So that's like freaking 30 games, something like that. A lot more competition than your top 5 for this year, unfortunately. But I have 2 really great games. Really, really great games I think these would easily both be in my top 5 this year, no doubt, but they're not from this year. So my runner-up is a game that just barely, in fact, I went back, I played this like maybe a month after making my Game of the Year episode last year, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this easily would have been my top 3. This easily would have been in my top 3 last year, and I just didn't get around to it fast enough. I didn't have the real drive, because I just didn't know that much about it at the time. And I have somebody online that I listen to a lot, and I really trust, Brad from 4Player Podcast, and I was like, he was really screaming about this game, being like, you gotta play it. And I was like, narrative game? Say no more. And so I picked it up and I played it and I was like, yep, this would be my top 3, 100%. Dang, that sucks that I didn't get around to this. My runner up for 2025 is 1000X Resist. 1000X Resist is, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It is a great narrative game. It's nothing but narrative. So like if you're looking for anything other than a story, you're not going to get it here. But this story is so cool and unique, and not only that, but like how I was talking about in Clair Obscur, like every major act has like this major twist that like turns everything on its head. That happens like every chapter. There's like 10 chapters in 1000X Resist, and that happens like every chapter in 1000X Resist. This is a story that took me on so many twists and turns. I loved the characters here. I loved the story. I genuinely cannot recommend 1000 Resist enough. Again, if you are looking for a cool narrative-based game, which I'm a sucker for, this would easily be one of the best narrative games I think I've ever played. It's genuinely that good. Genuinely narrative-focused games, I think it's up there, like easily top 10. Easily top, probably 5. Like it's that good overall. I don't want to spoil too much of it. But you're essentially, I don't even know, because like I said, there's like every chapter there's this major revelation. So like even if I give you the baseline, like this is the general, baseline understanding of the plot, it's like even then that is going to be spoiling like the first 3 chapters for you, because each one of like some of the revelations are like basic concepts, but like you as a player don't figure them out until like chapter 1, 2, or the end of chapter 1, 2, or 3. So like and it changes how you perceive what's going on significantly. So like I don't really want to do that. So like it's why this game is such a hard sell even by word of mouth, because you don't want to ruin even a little bit of it. So I would just say it's really good. Watch a trailer for it. You can't do much about that. That's how the developers wanted you to know about it. So the public info. So watch a trailer for it, see what you think, and definitely give it a try. It's also a cheap game and not that long either. Maybe like 10-ish, 8-10 hours. And very cheap. So 1000X Resist, easily my runner up. You say, Henry, bro, you would have put that on your top 5. What the frick missed the mark and is the winner? It's also a game from 2024, actually. I talked about it in depth on the podcast this year, and I spoke very highly of it, and it stays very highly recommended by me. It's Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio is my winner from a previous year. This is I said it on the podcast, and I think I stand by it even now. I mean, it's been a few months. It's probably one of my favorite JRPGs I've ever played. It's like top 3 favorite JRPGs I've ever played. Final Fantasy VII and Persona 4 Golden are probably like my top 2, and this is like my number 3, which is mind-boggling to me. It was like one of those experiences that I was like, oh, everything about this is great. Like I really love the combat in the game. I really love the progression. Like any issue that I had with a Persona style game, which I do have issues with for sure, they fixed it. In Metaphor ReFantazio, they found a way around all the problems that I really have typically with a Persona style game. And I love the cast here, which I think is insanely insanely important for any JRPG. I love the story of, like basically trying to win a kingly competition. Like I think that like traveling the world and like getting votes and like climbing the ranks to like dethrone this douchebag, like I think that's so good. I think that's so good. I think the ending was a little disappointing overall for me. It was just a little too generic JRPG, and there wasn't like a fantastic twist. I was really expecting like a giant twist at the end of the game, and there was, but I didn't think it was a very good one. So like that was like my only minor gripe with the game. Other than that, I loved grinding in the game. I loved the combat. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved the world. I loved the art style. I love everything about Metaphor ReFantazio. I said on the podcast, and I will reiterate, this is the kind of game that makes me so glad that I'm a variety gamer, and I try to play as many games as I can, because these games are the games that are going to be like, how many times have you played a game and you're like, well, I mean, there's no way this is going to be in my top 5, right? Or like maybe you finish a game and you're like, oh yeah, that's my top 5 game. Like that's my top 5 game of all time. And maybe you're a gamer like me and you play a lot of games and you're like, every time you play one, you're like, well, I know for a fact that's nowhere near my top 5. It's nowhere near my top 10. Like it's nowhere near my top 100. Like I like, how do you feel when you finally find that game, that diamond in the rough that finally resonates with you, that you're like, yeah, that was worth it. Like going through all of those games to finally find something that truly is so great. It's 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 going to be with you forever, Like that's my top X of all time. That's the feeling I got with Metaphor ReFantazio. And it's funny too because I don't hear anybody talking about it. Nobody's talking about this game. It reviewed very well, nominated for Game of the Year last year. Didn't win. Astrobot was kind of the favorite there. But this game is remarkably forgotten about very quickly. And I'm very surprised by it. I really wish more people were talking about Metaphor ReFantazio because I think it deserves it. And I think it is my favorite game from a previous year. And I think much deserved because I spent like 3 months playing that game anyway. It's like easily 120 hours in Metaphor ReFantazio. So it better be freaking worth my time. Anyway, we've come to the main event, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to list out the top 5 games of the year for the Plug in Play podcast, as played by me, your host, Henry. So, we finally gotten here. It's been a long year, ladies and gentlemen. Long, long, long year. And let me just say, any game that came out in the last quarter of the year, look, I missed you. All right, I missed you just by a little bit. I feel like Death Stranding 2 would definitely be here if, unfortunately, didn't have the time. Like a quarter of the way through the game right now. So I've said that earlier on the podcast, but just in case you skipped here, okay, using the timestamps in the description. It's a labor of love. I do it for you. Now you know. But we have top 5 games. Number 5, we're getting right into it. That's right. I'm not going to tease you any further. Number 5, you may, if you've listened to the whole episode, not be too surprised to hear it's Despelote. Despelote at my number 5 for the reasons stated in the previous categories that it won, by the way. I think that it is a very unique and interesting game that resonated with me super well. I feel like I should be describing the reasons why here, but I've already done that earlier in the episode. So if you really want to know why I love Despelote so much, please go listen to the previous categories. I promise you I go into very much depth, very much detail there. It's a fantastic game. However, I also recommend you listen to my go through on the podcast of it when I talked about it. But it's very divisive. I would not recommend it to everybody, but if you are a 90s kid, I think you have a very strong possibility of enjoying it. If you're anybody else, maybe not as much. But I am a 90s kid, so I did enjoy it. So this is where it actually gets a little bit more interesting. Number 4. So I actually, before starting to record this podcast, went back and forth very significantly, very stressfully. And I looked at 4 and 3, and it flopped about 3 different times. I had it, and I actually switched it right before recording. 4 and 3 were swapped, and I thought about it, and I was like, uh, objectively though, critically though, and I was like, no, I need to do this objectively. I think both of these games really, and it depends on the day, but I think if you came to me on a different day, I could tell you I like this game more, or I like that game more, or I think this game does this better, and therefore I'm like more strongly, it resonated with me more strongly, and I think all of my top 4 games are like really good. Easily would recommend all of them, but number 3 and 4 are really tight. Number 4, I'll rip the band-aid off. It's Ghost of Yotei. Now, for any hardcore plug and play podcast fans out there, I know there are many. For any hardcore fans, you would know I am a Sucker Punch junkie. The developer of Sucker Punch, or the developer of Ghost of Yotei, is Sucker Punch. They've also created Sly Cooper, Infamous, as well as Rocket Robot on Wheels for the N64. You may remember that, Jim. But they're very good. I really enjoy them. I have a huge nostalgic connection to them. Sly Cooper was like the game that launched my love for video games, really and truthfully. And I have a very, very soft spot for Sucker Punch. I still think Yotei's a great game. I think there are problems with it. And I think reviews reflected that. It's like 85-ish, 86-ish. The original Yotei, or the original Tsushima, Ghost of Tsushima, is very similarly reviewed. It's an open world checklist game, which I think automatically is going to hurt it a little bit because I'm kind of over that genre. Like Ubisoft has run it into the ground, and honestly, a lot of different studios have run it into the ground. That was just a very popular, because Ubisoft games were so popular, and this, it basically became the genre of like the 2010s. So like it is, I would say Ghost of Tsushima was even kind of just at the cusp of that trend kind of starting to fade, and here we are with Yotei, another open world checklist game. I'm already kind of over it. I'm already kind of against that in theory. I don't want to invest that much time doing another open world checklist game, even though I do find them fun. It's you really have to invest in an open world checklist game in order for it to really reap the rewards and be super fun. So just like a lot of games, but in this case, I think open world checklist games are often that, because you often just feel like you're very slowly plugging away at something to, finally complete something at the very end. But I also think the opening to Yotei is not great. I'm not saying the story or whatever. I'm saying the game putting you into the open world, dropping you down and saying, hey, you don't have a dodge roll. Like you need to go out and basically farm for like these moves that we've taken away from you and you really should have at this point. And like I think the combat only gets good, the rock paper scissors combat, it's like playing rock paper scissors, but you don't have rock or scissors. Like you just have paper, and you're just like, oh well, frick, I can't really engage with most of this combat very well. So like, I'm not a fan of the game until I got very deep into it, really. And I finally had the weapons that I didn't have to stagger people. I didn't have to stagger like one enemy for like 15 minutes before I could finally kill them. Or, like I had access to all the weapons I could, so I could effectively combat people. And I had access to all the skills I needed, so I could like dodge, roll, and do a bunch of basic freaking stuff that they should have just given me at the very start of the game. And not only that, but I think the open area itself is filled with, one, not a lot of interesting stuff to do. Like there's no story content or anything there, no main missions, but there's also a bunch of side missions that aren't very good. Like I think the worst side missions, the most bog standard side missions in the game, are all found in that open area at the very beginning of the game. And I guess that's just to kind of get you acclimated to the game a little bit better. But it's I I did not really enjoy my first 10 hours of Yote. I was very disappointed with it because all I did was I grinded out the main area. I got all the skills I needed. I didn't have the weapons I needed. And I wasn't enjoying my time with the side content because I think the side content is the worst there. The further I got in the game, the more I enjoyed it. When I started finally going into the alternate areas outside of the hub area and like engaging with the story and learning more. Also, the story really doesn't, it really just drops you into the story at the beginning. You really learn more about the story the more you go. Like what happened to Atsu, the night that she wants revenge for, and so on and so forth. Like you kind of learn all that as you go. You're not really told any of it up front. So like this is a game that really you have to invest in order to get the real juice out of it, right? And that rubbed me the wrong way. I have a lot, and I'm very regretful of that. I mean, like, it's not regret, I guess. It's the game was designed in that way, and I can't play the whole game in one sitting because it's a freaking 60-hour game. But like, the first time I talked about it on the podcast, I was like, yeah, this game's not that great. It's really disappointing to me. And I still think that I was expecting a really big leap from Sucker Punch from Ghost of Tsushima to Yote, because I think Sly Cooper 1 to 2 is a huge jump. I think Infamous 1 to 2 is a very big jump. Not as big as Sly Cooper, but still pretty big. And Yote, I felt like was all improved, but not like a massive jump. It was just another open world game that was, tweaked and modified in some various ways. But I think the overall core problems I had with a lot of Yote were in Tsushima. Like a lot of the combat and stuff I think was made better, but not like the staggering and stuff. Like I was saying, the rock paper scissors aspect of it. Some people like, I don't. So I think it's frustrating, at least for the beginning of the game. So, like I said, as I went, really started enjoying the game, ended up being one of my top 5, no doubt, and almost my top 3. But I think that there was enough wrong with the game, and I think that there was enough that I wish could have been better, and I was the disappointment there. And I think the genre itself really kind of knocked it down a little bit. That I was like, this is number 4. It was originally number 3, but I was like, it's got to be number 4. Number 3 is, I think, going to be where people are, I can't believe you put that above Ghost of Yote. You're a Sucker Punch stan, and you put this game above Ghost of Yote? How did you... Nobody even cares about this game. Where did this come from? It's Split Fiction. My top 3, my number 3 game of 2025 is Split Fiction. Nobody seems to be talking about this game. I even gave it my winner. I gave it my winner for, oh yeah, that game came out this year award, because no one's talking about it. It is forgotten. It is a game that came out and is a 91 on Metacritic, one of the highest rated games of all time on Metacritic. And nobody seems to care. Everybody forgot. It Takes Two, the game that this game is clearly like the successor to, the sequel essentially, is game of the year for the year it came out. This game was met with universal critic and commercial success, and nobody seems to be acknowledging that it is a great game. Like, I don't understand that. Split Fiction is hard for me to talk about in the same way of Ghost of Yote or the other 2 games on my list, because Split Fiction is just fun, okay? Like, it's really hard for me to describe it as anything else. Is like, Split Fiction is a game that from beginning to end I enjoyed. I had fun with. I played with a friend of mine, and we both had fun. I had a smile on my face every moment. The game never got old. Like it's essentially a game that continuously gives you something completely new. It basically scraps all the mechanics that you use every chapter of the game, and then gives you something completely new. And each chapter, you kind of have a progression of the evolution of these skills. So like for instance, one chapter you're like flying, you like have baby dragons. And then like as you progress, these dragons grow up and they grow up super fast. And by the end of the chapter, you're like flying around on these dragons, and these dragons are now like you're fighting like a giant boss with them and stuff. Like each chapter also ended in a really cool cinematic and interactive moment that I think all were great. Like I have no complaints about Split Fiction at all. Like I can't think of a single thing other than, like maybe this game is a little shallow, like, well, because we move on from such a new thing to a new thing to a new thing to a new thing to a new thing, it means that you don't have the same depth of something like a Ghost of Yote or a Clair Obscure or something like that, where like you're obviously investing in these skills and mechanics for an entire game. Like that's really the only problem I can really point out with Split Fiction. Other than that, everything that I did, every mechanic that they gave me was fun, it was interesting, it was changing on a regular basis to a point where I was never bored. Like I had probably the most fun playing Split Fiction this year out of all my games. So to put it above probably my favorite developer ever, their newest game. And when nobody seems to be recognizing this game as one of the best of the year either, when it was obviously something that everybody loved earlier this year, it just seems weird. It seems weird to be acknowledging this game at all because for some reason nobody else is. So I guess I'll be the champion of Split Fiction here, even though I don't have much to say about it other than it's fun. Like I think that's what a game should be. I think that's what a game should be in order to win an award like this. Like to be one of the greatest games of the year, you should be fun. So that's that's what it is, and it's my number 3 game of the year. All right, I think those were the two spicier takes. 2 and 1, probably a little less so. And we'll get right into it. Number 2 game of the year. Well, I don't know. Does this make it obvious if I say it? I don't know. Let's hope not. Maybe you'll be on the edge of your seat for number 1, but number 2 is Donkey Kong Bonanza. A fun little platformer. Well, really not a fun little platformer. It's a pretty hefty game if you try to 100% it, but Donkey Kong Bonanza. This was actually really surprising to me. I remember, and I went back, thank God I take notes on these games as I go, and I looked back at my notes, and I remember thinking, this game is a 91 on Metacritic. It's very well reviewed, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about it right now in terms of Game of the Year conversations, hearing a lot of Silk Song, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance. A lot of those games are kind of the ones coming up in conversations and not Donkey Kong, which is weird because when it came out, it was such a meteoric release. I think it was very, very heavily glazed. It was very well received, and it was the big Nintendo launch title, right? I think it was the reason I would tell people at least to buy a Switch 2. I think most people would say Mario Kart World, but still, Donkey Kong Bonanza was a smashing hit, no pun intended, and I played it and I was like, yeah, this game is really fun. Played it with my wife. We had a great time. And then when I finished it, I was like, well, there's still problems with this game. It's not entirely perfect. I think it's a little bit I think it's not as fun as people are really making it out to be. And then like people have really fallen on the game. Like I just don't see people really supporting it at all in these conversations. And I even remember saying, yeah, this is an easy top 5 game for me, but I don't know if it's going to be in my top 3. We're going to have to see by the end of the year. And I ended up not really getting around to most of the games that probably would have knocked this further down. But I think as it is, I looked at the games that I had in my top 5 that I kind of figured out like, okay, these are my top 5 games. and I looked at it and I was like, honestly, Donkey Kong did something different. GOTY is another checklist open world game. It's a good one, but it doesn't really do anything to break the mold. Split Fiction, it's another It Takes Two. Donkey Kong Bonanza, it does do things different. It tries to break the mold of what a 3D platformer is. It really leans into its destruction angle. I mean, it even completely, for better or for worse, completely changes, the traditional button mapping that you would see for a platformer, right? Um, I still have issues going back to that game and trying to get used to the controls because they're so different than what I'm used to, and that's because the kit that you have with Donkey Kong is so different. Not only that, but the emphasis on destruction it somewhat kind of disrupts the emphasis on platforming, but it still is certainly is a platformer. But like it really does turn the game into something unique and different, and I want to reward that. Not only did they make something unique and different within the platforming space, but they made it really well. This game has a lot of charm to it, the obvious Nintendo charm, the obvious Nintendo polish. It's fun above all else. I think that really where this game kind of degrades is kind of the same reasons that like Super Mario Odyssey degrades. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey, great game. I think people would say it's one of the best games ever made. In a lot of circumstances, that game is going to start showing up on best games ever made lists in like a decade or so because people who played it as a baby are going to be old enough to start doing that. But Donkey Kong Bonanza it has so many collectibles, and it has a lot of those collectibles are easy to just be like, yeah, I just literally walked 5 steps and then just punched a banana and then I got it. Like that's very similar to what you kind of do in Super Mario Odyssey. The collectibles are very easy. They're very baby-ish. Getting through the game just in general is really, really, really easy. It's only when you get to the super challenge areas that does this game have any teeth at all. It doesn't even require you to collect bananas in order to progress. You really just have to get from one end to the other and maybe do a little boss fight or something like that. And that's not particularly difficult. So really this game is only going to be difficult if you try to 100% it. And even then, a lot of the 100%ing in this game is like pretty minute and like, well, yeah, I didn't really do much to earn that collectible, and that's again, like I said, the same issue I normally have with Super Mario Odyssey. Whereas in something like a Super Mario 64, you're collecting one shine is like, or one star is a massive undertaking, and it feels like a deliberate, developed challenge. And I don't think all of the bananas, in fact, the majority of the bananas in Donkey Kong Bonanza really fit that. But I think that overall, this game is a really unique and well designed package. You are constantly engaging with new mechanics, new terrain that changes how you have to interact with Donkey Kong's moveset. The skill tree is fun to upgrade. The collectibles in general are fun to collect. And I think, like I said, moveset, everything fun to interact with. Love the soundtrack. I gave it runner up for soundtrack of the year. This is overall not a perfect package, but a unique and well designed package. And I think I like to reward that very often. I can recognize when a game has really good ideas and really good execution. And even though I may not appreciate 100% of it, I can easily say that like I would love to see more unique ideas and more fun ideas. And that's something I think Donkey Kong really tries to emphasize is like, we want you, the player, to have fun. Like breaking stuff is fun, and we want you to experience that. And I definitely appreciate that from Donkey Kong Bonanza. So that's my number 2 game of 2025. Number 1. Um, I feel like this is kind of boring. Is this boring? I mean, this is probably the most anticlimactic number 1 of any year because okay, it's Clair Obscura Expedition 33. Okay, it's everybody's given it Game of the Year. It swept at the Game Awards. It swept all of my like non-pessimistic, Game Awards here. Like every single award I've given that's a good award that Clair Obscura could be nominated for, it won. Kind of lame, right? But let's talk this through. Claire Expedition 33 or Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is really great in every aspect. Okay, it's really great in every aspect. It is genuinely fun. The combat is genuinely fun. The parrying and dodging, I was genuinely invested in. I'm not a big parry dodge guy, but like, gosh darn, dude, they really nailed it here. They really give you massive incentive to master parrying. The every character's skills and how you're supposed to use them is unique and fun and interesting and OP if you want to master it. The content in this game is the world amazing, characters great. I think your main cast of characters are really great. I think the side characters are a little like, I think people just don't like talking about them. They're like, yeah, you do have other party members. Which is like kind of what my main issues with Claire Obscure is like. It's like, yeah, I mean, you have other party members in Claire Obscure, but like, I mean, what you're really all focusing on at the main cast, like, let's be real. I think I've definitely played better RPGs with better overall subcast members than Claire Obscure, but it is what it is. They're still fun. Story is great from beginning to end. Massive twists that really keep you on the edge of your seat, and a unique and interesting story and world that continued to keep me guessing, continued to keep me intrigued. That all made sense by the end of it all. I mean, like, where can I soundtrack? Soundtrack is amazing, as I've said earlier. I think one art direction, I don't know, that's debatable, but like, it is definitely has some very unique and interesting visuals. Story is great. I love the conclusion. I love the final choice that you have to make in this game. It really stands out to me as a great moment of the year. Bro, I don't know. Like, there's a bunch of extra side content in this game that like kind of makes this game kind of crazy. Like, it's like, oh dang, this is a lot of side content, and it's a lot of significant side content. And I think the story, and I'm not talking about the narrative specific, I'm talking about the narrative, the meta narrative. Like, this was a group of ex Ubisoft developers who wanted to make something different, and like, cobbled together a team and got a guy from SoundCloud to make the soundtrack. And like, these are the underdogs, and I think the more we learn about them, the more we're like, well, okay, well, this game did have a big publisher behind it. Not one of the major publishers that we think of, but like, yeah, it definitely had some financial backing. And like, yeah, like, these aren't really indie developers. They have a lot more experience with games than most indie developers do. And like, there's definitely some cracks in that story if you really wanted to poke at it. But like, even still, it's much better than being like, well, then, yeah, EA Mass Effect 8, you've won Game of the Year, you deserve it. It's like, well, this is an established corporation that everybody knows, and like, had the monetary budget to make a fantastic product, and we all knew it was going to be fantastic because it's a tried and true formula that's of course going to work. Duh. Like, that's obvious. This is something new, something unique, something interesting from people who did not have that much faith. I mean, I think people forget, but this was a game nobody really was expecting to be great. Like, this game came out of nowhere. I remember Fantasy Critic wise, I was playing Fantasy Critic, and this was like it was like an honestly a standard counter pick. Like, people looked at this game and they were like, maybe it'll be good. I'm really looking forward to like an old school JRPG feel. And that is a lot of what you get with Clair Obscur. Not a lot, but like, that is a lot of the appeal, I think. The Final Fantasy overworld, walking around the map, kind of like from a high level perspective and that kind of thing. They definitely pull from a few things like that. And so I think people were expecting the game to be like that. They pick it, and then it ends up being a 92, the highest rated game of the year, which is insane. And it was everybody was like, honestly, it probably is going to be like mid. Like, it has a possibility of being like mid 70s, because at the time we hadn't really seen much of Expedition 33 that made it look particularly amazing. Its visuals were fine and fun and striking, and the story I thought was interesting, but that's not really what they were showing off. So like, it was a very was hard to really get behind Clair Obscur and be like, this is going to be a great game. And obviously a new developer that nobody knew what they were going to do with it and how they were going to deal with it. So it was a total unknown quantity. And then all of a sudden the reviews started coming out, and I remember some people who had counterpicked Clair Obscur. It was like, that's the end of your league. Like it's over. Like how could you have known? And I think I still look at this as such a surprise, such a wonderful surprise. I genuinely wish we had more of Clair Obscurs in the world. But I think it's a once in a generation kind of deal where you're not going to get this very often. And I think the stars aligned, and it's weird to see people pushing back against Clair Obscur, but I genuinely, if you are saying this doesn't deserve game of the year, because I do see a lot of people saying that, which is weird because I thought everybody was saying it deserved it before, and now that it's winning everything, I think people are just frustrated that it's just boring. Like the game of the year conversation is just boring because it's like, well, yeah, everybody's just giving it to Clair Obscur, and it's like, well, honestly, it kind of deserves it. Honestly, it kind of deserves it. If you don't think that, I genuinely, one, I want to ask you if you played it. You know, does this game maybe not look appealing to use? It not normally the kind of genre that you're interested in? If so, totally get it. If there's even a bit of you that's like the Final Fantasy or a standard JRPG turn-based in any way, Pokemon, I don't care. I implore you. Maybe if you just like a good story, I implore you, please play Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I would love to hear you say, no, I still think, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is my top pick, or Death Stranding 2 is my top pick, or Donkey Kong Bonanza, or whatever is my top pick. I would love to hear that conversation. But I think it's really hard for somebody to look at everything that Clair Obscur brings to the table and how it executes on it and what it is and where it came from and honestly look within themselves and say, this is not game of the year. It is too good in every aspect. It's too good. Maybe it could look a little bit better, quote unquote, like graphics wise. It's not what you're typically used to with from like a AAA budget game, but like I don't give a frick about that. I will play a pixel art game and still think it's good, Like I don't care if you're the most graphically high intensity game ever, and Clair Obscur was never going to be that. But like, oh my gosh. This is clearly the year of Clair Obscur. It's clearly the year of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It deserves it in every instance. And it's my game of the year for 2025. It is the Plug and Play podcast game of the year for 2025. Not only is it the game of the year, it swept every award, which is kind of insane. I feel like I need to add more awards after this that are not just negative. But there it is. I don't know. Was that anticlimactic? Hopefully not. Hopefully that was worth sitting through. I feel like I am one of the people who has kind of flip flopped in the opposite direction on Clair Obscur over time. Like originally this game was, everybody was talking about how great it is. It's the greatest game ever made. Yada, yada, yada. And I was like, look, it's not perfect. It's a little bit, it's got some flaws. It's got some cracks, and I was kind of having to be the one to point those out. And then now it's like everybody wants this game to burn. I don't know what happened there. Now that it's winning Game of the Year pretty much unanimously, and I'm kind of here sitting like, no, like this game is really good, like. So I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm a hypocrite. Maybe I'm just contrarian. Am I just contrarian? I think I just like a good conversation. That's what I like to say. But it definitely deserves it. And if you don't think so, then please play it. And maybe if not still, then it is what it is. But that is my Game of the Year 2025 show. Friends, I appreciate you sticking with me. This has been a big year for Plug and Play podcast. Finally started kind of trying to grow the podcast mid-year. A lot has happened in life kind of very shortly, very, very shortly after that. And it's been hard. It's been really hard. It's been a really difficult year in a lot of ways for me. And video games and this podcast are one of the things that I really enjoy doing. Talking about video games, analyzing video games, talking about the news around it. And I feel like Game of the Year episodes are always one of those special episodes that everybody kind of looks forward to doing. At least I know I do. Throughout the year, I'm constantly thinking like, whoa, well, where is this going to rank on my top five? Is this good enough to hit the top five rank? Like all that good stuff. And it's really satisfying to put it all together at the end. And I wish I had more games to put in my top five and for consideration for this year. And it was really going to suck because I'm going to play like 15 games in the next 3 months and be like, oh frick, well yeah, all these games are bangers and they would have easily knocked my top five around a lot, but it doesn't matter because I enjoy doing this. I hope you enjoyed listening. I'm hoping that 2026 even leads to more good stuff for plug and play. I'm still thinking of things to do with it as a podcast and how to grow it and how to kind of show off the podcast as a whole. Clips. I've kind of decided if I can, I'm going to start trying to move away from AI. It seems to be too polarizing. Um, More people seem to be upset with the clips that I'm posting just because there's AI than actually engaging with what I'm saying. And while that technically is good for the algorithm because they're engaging, even though they hate me, I guess I'd rather not be hated if it's easily avoidable. So I mean, I'm not concrete in anything yet. Still kicking around ideas, but I'm going to try. I'm going to attempt. But this has been the Plug and Play podcast Game of the Year 2025 episode. And friend, I appreciate you being with me. I appreciate you hopefully listening the entire year. If not, I hope that you continue to listen. Maybe this is the first episode you've ever heard, and you want to continue listening to me. You thought I was maybe rational, maybe entertaining, maybe a cool guy, and you want to stick around. And I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it greatly. I appreciate anybody who listens, and I hope you played some really good games this year, and I hope you play some really good games next year, and continuing onward. And one last thank you from here, from me, and from the Plug and Play podcast. Thank you, and bye bye.